So normally I'm used to being the MC, so like I let everybody else do the talking, but I haven't done a presentation in like forever. But hopefully you're gonna enjoy because I thought of bringing like a bunch of examples here. So I hope you're gonna find the talk interesting. And I kind of tried to make it for a little bit for everybody. The reason why I wanted to talk about 5 marketing strategies you're sleeping on in 2025 is because a lot of the things that you're gonna see here might seem very easy to understand, or it's like, oh yeah, of course, this is what you're going to talk about, but like there are very few people that actually do it. So that's why I brought them up, and especially because I have a bunch of examples to give you. So yeah, but to give you a bit of a context of who I am, I've been working Web 2, the very popular word, for more than 10 years, and I've been in Web 3 for about 4. I've been working with early stage tech startups. I run a Web3 marketing podcast, which is I think right now the only one remaining, or like that's been the only one standing for the last 2 years. And I got awarded, as Rising Woman in Blockchain by BitGet. It was they do this blockchain for her awards, and they gave it to me during the Shifai Summit in Singapore last year. I also run a Web3 marketing hackathon. I've already done 2 editions because a lot of people complain about the fact that hackathons are only for tech people and developers, and like there's so many non-technical folks that would like to do something a bit more different. I ran 2 events already, one in DEF CON last year in Bangkok, one in Denver doing ETH Denver. And you're gonna see a bunch. I'm gonna talk a bit about the hackathon a bit later, and you're gonna see some numbers as well a bit later. The 3rd edition right now is gonna come in Argentina during Dev Connect, so it's gonna be a year in the making, let's say, with the third one. Last guy did it for 2K, call him Dan, he's no longer in business. Basically, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this presentation. Because a lot of times that's what the industry feels like and looks like. And if you look, I don't know how many of you know about Safari. Safari is like one of the biggest communities of Web3 marketers. Then there's like Web3 growth landscape in 2024. And apparently like only 10 to 20% of them are still active. I still know a couple of them. Some of them are kind of dying off. And I looked at some stats, and apparently 42% of Web3 startups die within the first year, just because the first reason for that is the product. Obviously, we do build a lot of projects, and like that's why we have a lot of hackathons for devs as well. But like the biggest issue is always that we don't know if there's a product market fit. But I also looked at the numbers for Web 2, and apparently it's a very similar percentage, and it's also a very similar reason. I mean, obviously for different contexts, but yeah. The first thing I want to talk about is like founder-led marketing. I know a lot of founders don't want to talk about, don't want to be the face. A lot of them stayed in the idea like, I can be anonymous and my community is going to grow because my product is so great. But it's not always the case, obviously. And the reason why it's very important is because, so first of all, what is it? Is like when the founder is leading the team and the product itself, and it's kind of becoming the voice of the product. So basically, it helps engage the community and everything you're building there. It's very important for 3 reasons: authenticity, narrative control, so he can always be there to talk about, to control the narrative, if it's like good or bad, or like hype things up. And it's also community magnetism. People like love to see a person. They don't really like to see bots, as we were talking about that a bit earlier. And it's also, obviously, it's a lot more emotional. And if you look at why it works, is that 92% of people trust recommendations from individuals, which is a very, very high percent. Companies with active founders on social media see 3x higher engagement across their official brand channels. VC-backed projects often see funding announcement go viral when the founder is also very active in that. There's a project called Clutch Wallet, where the founder actually built her TikTok, and that's kind of how she managed to get funding, because everybody's asking like, oh, what's your database? Like, what kind of people do you have in your community? And she's like, well, this is like 100,000 followers on TikTok. So that's kind of how she managed to get backed. And Founder-led spaces and AMAs consistently outperform corporate communication, obviously with a lot higher percentage, as you can see, between 40 and 60, which is very, very high. If you look at a couple of examples, I brought you 3 very different examples. One of them is Jesse from Base. Obviously, he's very active on Twitter, but he's also very active on Farcaster. And a lot of people follow his voice and follow his narrative and got on Farcaster because of him, not just because of the hype. At least I got on Farcaster because of him. Another example is Leon Aboud. He runs a marketing agency. They don't even have a Twitter page for Unfungible, which is the name of their marketing agency. And the reason for that is because he's one of the biggest drivers of the communication for them. And imagine he was betting on NFTs, and everybody was like, bro, they're dead. They're not coming back. Like, no, I do believe this is how it's gonna work. He builds all his communication around that, and it seems to be working for him. I'm not exactly sure what he's been doing lately because I haven't followed him so much. And maybe one of the reasons is because he recently told me that a lot of his audience are males. That's why he does a lot of, the way he communicates is very male friendly, let's say. But somebody else, if you look at Maggie Love, she runs the biggest community for women in Web3 called SheFi. They do have a course as well. I've done it 2 years ago. And a lot of people love her and hate her at the same time. It's like, oh, I don't like Maggie. She does all this girly stuff. But at the same time, she brought so many women. In my 7th cohort, when I applied, there were 400 women per cohort. So every cohort is every 4 months. And the way, right now, I think there were over 4,000 applications in the last one, which is pretty insane if you look at the 2-year growth. And she leads with a very different way that the other 2 gentlemen do. But I wanted to bring you also a female example for you to check her out if you don't already know her. Something else I wanted to talk about as well, to touch on, is team-led marketing, because I think from founder-led marketing is team-led marketing. And here we have 2 examples. Emily and Maria, they work for Hype. Hype is another marketing agency. And they kind of took over the space. They run the biggest community for marketers in this space, at least not on Telegram. They have, you see, almost 800 members. It's pretty active. They build a lot of the communication is very attached to Hype. And they managed to hire really quickly. They managed to get clients to work with them and so on. So it's a common effort. Everybody from the team kind of acts as a BD, let's say, more or less to the way they communicate. Another example that I have is Angelina, who is the HR or head of people, whatever they call it right now, at Alchemy. She does an amazing job, getting people to know about Alchemy and making people happy. Last year, she saw that, I think they have these t-shirts with my mom thinks I work at Bitcoin, and I actually saw that on Twitter, on LinkedIn before it got popular. And I told her, oh my God, I want a t-shirt. She's like, pass me your address, I would have sent you a t-shirt. And she sent me a t-shirt, a couple of days later, it was at my door. And obviously, I would always appreciate the way everything she does, and especially because Alchemy right now is a company from Romania, and she's been, or at least she came at least once here, but she told me she's going to be here a lot more often. And then another example I have is Miggy from Sofon. He started doing this communication around Sofon and making Sofon look cool. And I don't know how many of you are active on Twitter, but Louis, for example, he used to work for Luxo. And he recently left, and now he's doing videos. So he's also promoting a lot of the project that he works for. Obviously, he's pretty well known in this space as well. So there's enhancement on top of enhancement. So you basically get all these people to talk about how cool is software and why anybody should be using that. And then you have community-led marketing. This is an example of how people have been raving about how they got into the season 14 of SheFi. There are actually a lot of these kind of examples, but I only saved one, so at least I have an example for you guys. The second one is the cards from Uniswap, basically, that I'm going to show you just in a little bit of like how they look like. Initially, I thought like Nico is somebody that like is just somebody that got them, but he actually works for them, but it still counts as a team marketing, if you want to call it like this. The second thing I wanted to touch on was KOL marketing, because everybody hates KOLs, like, let's be honest, like, but at the same time, everybody puts money into KOLs. So it's a vicious circle that nobody knows how to get out of. I thought of like talking about KOL marketing with a twist. Let's see. And I wanted to like show you some numbers as well. Basically, what happens is that a lot of like very big accounts are botted. A lot of them are doing the exactly same campaigns over and over again for like very different products. So that's why like they dissolve the authority that they have in front of their audience, and especially when it comes to like DeFi projects. And a lot of like them have fake followers that I told you, like 30 to 60% of large KOLs are botted, which is like pretty insane. And if you look at their engagement, like it's really easy to spot that. Something else, like when it comes to budgets and ROI, is that the average Web3 KOL post costs between 1 and 15K, and that's not a joke, depending on like follower count and niche. Projects report customer acquisition costs ranging from 50 to 250 per user through KOL campaigns, which is like, if you ask me, they're very, very high numbers. Then you have 53% of Web3 founders said KOL campaigns were moderately effective. So like it means that it doesn't always work. Obviously, it really depends on the project and like what you do and like where you are with your branding and so on. And only for 11% found them highly effective. But as I said, it really depends. Like that's what marketers like to say all the time. They can never give you a proper answer. And then, as I said, like a lot of them use the same people, and then 40% of Web3 users report mistrust in influencers, because we've seen a lot of examples in the last couple of years how people were trying to influence you to buy stuff, and then they were like total rug pulls. So what do? We go niche, so we go with micro influencers. If you ask me, it's not yet something that it's widely used. I would like to see a lot more of that, because I think if I look at my engagement, if I look at the engagement of people with like 100K, I have 4-point-something K on Twitter, but like all my followers are organic. I'm pretty sure that many times I'll have a lot higher engagement. Then if you can go multi-channel, so if you go on like Forecaster and Twitter and Telegram or mini sites or Telegram groups and so on, they normally perform better because they're like closer, they're smaller, they're tighter communities. Then you have the conversion improves if the KOL hosts a space, post a call to action with the collectible mint. Here I'm not 100% sure if that still works, but it's been a very widely spread tactic. And then basically the idea would be to use them as creators, not broadcasters. Because if you want a broadcaster, you do founder-led marketing, I guess. So let's look at some examples. For example, they're not exactly, now that I look at it, I'm not sure like that I chose the best example. I want to talk about like this campaign on Bountycaster, where you can bring like speakers and sponsors, but this is like more like community-led type of thing. But at the same time, and the second one, I think it's pretty much the same kind of example. But something else, a project that I discovered recently is Blockbook. Blockbook wanted to they actually changed their product quite a lot in the last 2 years. They used to be, the way they built the product initially was not great for the type of market that we're in right now. Right now, basically, the way it works is that you can put your content, you decide what kind of budget you want. So for example, I can post a podcast episode that I can tell people I have $100 budget or like $200 budget, and I will pay anybody like based on the types of views and how many views you have and how much engagement you have. Anybody that does a snippet from that for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, 30 seconds can get paid from that. And basically that's why it's like so great as a brand ambassador program. It's something that is not widely spread yet, and I know they're still like in the early stages of their development, but they've had some really cool campaigns that they've run with like a bunch of projects, and I thought it's interesting because you can also have KOLs, but you can also have a lot more like normal people, like content creators, micro KOLs to be helping you and to kind of monetize. Monetization has been like a very big issue, and it's been widely spread and talked about for like quite some time. The third thing I want to touch on is like Web2 marketing in Web3. You might wonder, how is that possible? We can actually do that, and I want to show you some examples of like how it worked, if you ask me, pretty effectively and pretty cool. One of them is like there's some posters that Uniswap posted recently. They put them on walls, and I think they were actually, one of them was in New York in permissionless. I'm not exactly sure if they were in Berlin during Berlin Blockchain Week. But I saw a lot of people on Twitter posting photos with that, so I thought like it's a very easy thing to do, but still pretty effective, if you ask me. So the virality possibility is quite high, if you ask me. Another campaign that I've seen recently is also Uniswap. They've had this card, as I showed it to you at the beginning, with like Uniswappy. And basically, they took influencers and they put them on this card. So they have this like pack of cards, and everybody was posting the card that it's with them or of them. And it's fun, relatable, engaging. So people are very excited to collect it and to spread the word about you. Obviously, Uniswap is quite a big project, so it's not like nobody knows them. But I think like, I wanted to show you that there's some very creative ideas that can be done. Even with like smaller budget, because I don't think that costed them so much money, but I think it was very creative and very effective at the same time. Another example that I'm absolutely obsessed with recently, and I actually saw it initially on Instagram, and then I saw it on Twitter as well, because I was like, well, if it's on Instagram, it must be on Twitter as well. This is, Kraken actually hired this guy who's a fighter. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with that, but they hired this guy, and they said like, we just hired a new customer support guy, and then let us introduce you to this guy. And he's like, do you want to know the price of Bitcoin? And he did this like very, very funny video on basically at the end of it, like using Kraken and stuff. I thought it was the type of video that I've seen so far. They were not great. They were very traditional kind of thing, but like I feel like this was very creative. I'm pretty sure they spent a lot of money on it, but at the same time, I think it's fun. I think it's entertaining, relatable. The virality chance is also quite high. Let's see. The fourth thing I want to talk about is ad networks. The reason why I think their ad networks is like they're not highly used is probably because people don't know how to use them, or people don't think they have enough budgets to use them, which is maybe true, but I think anybody should definitely try to at least like test them. There are a lot of ad networks. I'm not exactly sure how many. I mean, I know some of them have survived the years. For example, I've been knowing Dot for a long time. I've known Addressable for a long time. But for example, like I know Spindle recently got sold. AdX is actually a company from Bulgaria, so they're our neighbors. So a lot of like other platforms. Slice was recently sold as well, but they do have this, they still keep the name from what I know. And these are some stats that I took from Addressable's presentation. They did it for like Cointelegraph's Accelerator in Dubai. but I thought like they're relevant for the purpose of this talk. And the question was like, how do you target your ideal crypto users across marketing channels? Basically in Web2, you have like all these like social media channels that like everybody's like so familiar with. Then in Web3, you have like all these like blockchains and wallets and protocols, but then like you wonder like who's actually in between. And basically companies like Addressable or like all the others that you've seen recent, like in the previous slide, basically are the intermediary between like Web 2 and Web 3. How do you target your ideal audience? Basically, I wanted to give you some examples. So you can go for active traders on Ethereum with over like 1,000 Magic, for example. So as you can see, you can go pretty specific, which I think is very, very important, especially if you have a specific kind of campaign or budget that you don't want to like splash and get like zero ROI. Let's see if it is. Or like, for example, like you can get active developers in the Ethereum ecosystem, in this case, Ethereum, Maxis, and so on. Basically, something else I also found interesting in that presentation is like they were making a comparison between like bull market and the bear market. And the bull market gets like more CPW rates, but they're also a lot more competitive, which is like obvious because everybody wants to grow in the bull run. But premium markets and emerging markets share the same greed behavior, which I found to be very interesting. But at the same time, in bear market, unless you're an established company, premium markets and emerging markets may deviate by up to like 200%, which I think is kind of understandable. But at the same time, I think we always go back to, do you have a product market fit? Do you have a good branding, let's say? You can see here some numbers based on audience segments, which I thought might be interesting for maybe some of you to take a look at as well. So average acquisition costs are a lot lower for traders and dev, but are higher than they are for like gaming and gambling. Obviously, a lot of that is due to like user expectation and quality of products. And the last thing, because I only have like 3 minutes left, I want to talk to you a little bit like the Web3 Marketing Hackathon. The idea was that I wanted to make something that was not done before, and it's not like non-technical people can participate. And I also thought like there's so many companies that need marketing help, and like marketing agencies charge a lot of money. The process takes a lot of time, but in this kind of hackathon, it's easy to get like output and ROI like really fast. So we had over like 200 registrations at like both of the events. We had like over, I think actually the number is like 300 participants, a very high submission rate compared to a normal like dev hackathon. It was like a 50-50 participation rate, so it was like a hybrid event like at both editions. We had 65% women, which is also very, very interesting. 50 plus countries. Ethereum is the top interest blockchain. We also had, I think, $25,000 in prize pool. US and India are like the higher numbers of participants, and we had people that registered from like 70 plus protocols. There's also some examples of bounties that we were able to do. So we had sponsors like Starknet Foundation and Polygon. As you can see, like some of them are like very specific because they had to like go with like, they have like a go-to-market strategy. Some of them wanted to be a bit more creative when it comes to their ecosystem companies. Some of them wanted to like a design challenge like Polygon. They wanted to like change the Web3 merch design. We also did a campaign with like wallet integration for Exportal, which is a Romanian company, obviously, with like Barrett Chain. So as you can see, things can go in like very, very, very different ways. So these are some of the companies that have supported us so far. There are a bunch of sponsors, but we also had community partners. In the last event, we actually gave everybody that submitted like a POAP as a sign of gratitude. And I'm very excited about it because like I hope we're going to be able to do a lot more of that as well. And then I have 3 tools that I wanted to talk to you about like very, very briefly, if I still have time. Yeah. Okay. I was in a space recently, and one of my speakers was talking about meme lore technologies. Apparently, he uses that quite a lot for to create like memes and to kind of stay on trend, let's say. So I thought that might be interesting for you guys to check it out as well. I've known this information for about 2 days. I didn't give it a go yet because I had to come here, but I definitely want to give it a go. And he's somebody that I trust quite a lot because he does very good content. Then something else that I've noticed recently is that like video spaces, at least like the spaces that I host, like they can go from like 150 to like 500 people. But if you go with video, with live video, this is also an example from Emily, I saw like her numbers actually like went a bit down, but it's still like a lot harder, like 4 times higher, like 5 times higher than what you would normally do with like a normal Twitter space. And they've also hosted video streams on Twitter that got like 4 to 5K, which is insane if you look at like the numbers. But at the same time, I think you need to be a bit courageous to experiment with it. And then I also know there's another company that I found out recently. They're called Grow3. They have AI agents that comment for you. I'm not a big fan of that because I think a lot of them are just, you can see they're bots. But I was very surprised. I mean, they sent me a bunch of case studies. This is one of them. But I was really impressed to see the kind of growth that you see from there after they started using that. So maybe it is something to explore, and I would actually like to use it for my, as an experiment for me as well. And the last one is Kaja.ai. They basically do support. They work as an AI analyst and also like an AI DevRel. So they can do like databases for you. They can do a bit of community management. So people that you actually work with, they can do the creative work, let's say, and you let the agent like do its work. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Let's put our hands together. Now, we've already got 2 questions for you, so don't run off just yet. Very, very quickly, though, because we've only got 5 minutes to the next talk. Number 1, any advice for understanding the Web3 space for non-tech newbies?
Yeah, so probably like the first thing that I would say is to go do the SheFi course. I think that would be like the best way and the easiest way. Right now it's a bit more expensive like than what it used to be, but at the same time it is, I think you can also ask for a scholarship, so that's great. At the same time, I think building in public really helped, and it really helped me. I had no idea what Twitter was. I mean, I knew, but like I've never used it. I've had this account since 2009, so I think I was still in high school or something. But like it really helped me move from like LinkedIn, like understand the type of content there, to like Twitter. And I think like I used my Twitter to like understand if people actually want to do a hackathon, and like I think that's really helped me understand if it can actually work. So, yeah.
Okay, great. More questions flooding in. Wow. So Solidity Wizard wants to know, you said everyone needs KOL marketing, but why? Question mark.
Endorsement, basically. It's like the same concept as in Web 2. So a lot of them, I think like the KOL marketing has been very widely used for the longest time. Therefore, it's still something that even if it's not always very effective, it's still part of the marketing strategy.
Okay, good to know. How would you mitigate risks in founder-led marketing? What if your founder gets into a major crisis? Question mark.
I think an example of that is Mantle. Like when they had that crash recently, maybe it was like 2 months old. But at the same time, he was also the one that got all the backlash, but he's also the one that managed to redeem everything. So if I were to be short, that's what I would say.
Good to know. So more on KOL marketing. We really need to track what these guys are doing. So what KPIs should we use to benchmark them? Question mark.
Oh, impressions, if you ask me, engagement, and then conversions.
Cool, keeping it simple. Does anybody else have any other organic questions from the crowd? No?
Well, there are a lot more. So.
There's more coming through. My God, look at that. Consensus Builder wants to know, what channels have you seen working to launch consumer crypto products outside of Twitter/Farcaster?
I think like one of the biggest issues we have as an industry is that we don't have enough consumer-facing products. And then I think maybe brand ambassadors, events. For example, like MetaMask right now does have a card, and they do have this like very exclusive events with like KOLs. And they've invited me, so I'm very excited to go to. I'm going right now to ETC in Cannes, so I'm very curious to see how this experience works, so I can go talk about it as well. But I think like at the same time, probably companies like Addressable would be something that I would look into as well.
Good to know. This isn't a question on the board, it's more of a question I have actually, but what are your thoughts on LinkedIn as a marketing channel for our industry?
I hate it. But she loves it. So I think like I spent 2 years growing my account. I have over 8,000 followers. It got me nothing, like zero anything. I spent so much time on it. And when I first launched my podcast, I was like, so you guys found it on LinkedIn? And they're like, no, on Spotify search. And I was like, damn it. But if I go on Twitter, like the story is totally different. And I think on Twitter, people are like a lot more raw, where on LinkedIn, like everybody's just trying to be somebody that they're not. And that's my biggest issue. But I do get a lot more people to reply to me on Twitter than I get people to reply to me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, so just not as much honesty and authenticity.
But I think it really depends, like what kind of, if you do have like a B2B product, or like if you're a VC or whatever, like I think you would probably need to like have a stronger like LinkedIn presence. But if you do anything else, probably not that relevant. And there are actually a lot of companies in Web3 that don't have a LinkedIn page.
That's certainly true. Is marketing still marketing nowadays in an AI-flooded market? From Validator Victor.
I didn't catch the presentation of my previous speaker from before, so I don't remember her name. But she is right. Like Dubai was flooded with like AI. If you ask me, I think this is gonna fade soon enough, and then we're gonna go back to what we know to do, or like in the best case scenario, use AI to work, or make AI to work for good use. But otherwise, I'm waiting for this hype to kind of chill, because I think I don't like it. Okay,
pessimistic about AI there. Does anybody else have any other questions? I've actually never seen so many questions on the board for one of these talks, so I think Alexandra smashed it. Anybody else? Okay, well in that case, let's put our hands together one final time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.